Hi there, listeners and fellow learners. Welcome once again to our Namcol radio studio. My name is Ronald Krotz. Today, listeners, we are going to talk about the deterioration of the Namibian environment. More specifically, on environmental issues like bush encroachment and desertification. Enjoy the lesson with us. Good morning and welcome to our daily show. It's all about farming. I will be your host, Denver Kisting, for this session. With me in the studio, I have our first guest, Nicole, and our second guest, Megan. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for joining me in the studio. Today, I would like to talk about the deteriorating factors that you as farmers are faced with daily and have been facing over the past years. Now, according to my understanding, deterioration means to be in a bad state and our environment is being damaged or destroyed constantly. Which of these damaging factors do you experience on your farms?
Denver, I'm confronted daily with this huge problem of bush encroachment. I started noticing when my grazing areas were replaced by invasive bush, which completely took over my natural vegetation. The bushes became so thick that it is difficult for animals and people to move around.
As for me, it's desertification. This happened due to the dry area that I have on my farm that has little vegetation, which became drier and drier and eventually a desert.
Oh. These sound like serious problems that you are facing, and they are complicated challenges. Namibia has a very fragile and diverse ecology. Ecology simply means the relationship living organisms have with each other and their physical surroundings. What would you say are the causes of these damaging factors you're faced with?
Oh, most definitely human causes, like overgrazing by cattle. We had too much cattle in the past that we overstocked, and we surely didn't have enough camps at the time. We also had abandoned areas that were cleared for cultivation that got filled with dense invasive bush. Yes, and the most common factor is severe drought that we experienced over several years that changed savannas into dense, bushy areas with very little grass cover. And then lastly, our veld burned and we expected rain, but unfortunately it didn't come. Yes, so these are the causes on my farm.
Devastating. It looks like you guys are struggling.
Certainly, Denver. It's not an easy job, I tell you. Deforestation is my enemy because this dried out my land and removed the roots which bind the soil together. Sinking of boreholes caused my water supplies to dry up. Oh, and less rainfall each year causes my vegetation to die and the protective vegetation cover disappears. We also cultivated a lot but planted the same crop on the same land every year. This caused the soil to lose its nutrients and to become infertile and dry. And these are my hardships on the farm. I believe that for us farmers, we face serious and new challenges every day, but we keep the faith like a potato.
Yes, that's true.
Also remember, farmers, that Namibia is the world's driest country outside the Sahara. Along our west coast is the Namib, the oldest desert in the world, and to the east of Namibia lies the Kalahari Desert. So we're totally surrounded by deserts. Well, guys, let's take a quick break and enjoy ourselves with a soft drink. Thank you and welcome back to our talk show. In the studio, I have two farmers who will share the joy of being a farmer. What are the effects of your deteriorating factors?
Well, we've seen that our meat master sheep cannot eat thorny invasive bush, and that's when bush encroachment takes place. They can no longer graze in that particular area. Neither people nor animals can pass through that area at all. We also have a lot of wild animals on our farm that feed on a range of different vegetation. Of course, meaning that if one plant species dominates, animals that feed on other plants will move away, further disrupting the biodiversity of an area.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Megan, I can somehow relate to those effects, like the drying out of soil, lowering of the water table, which also causes the surface to dry out. And then there is that wind erosion, as dry, loose soil is blown away by the wind. With no plant roots to bind the soil, increases erosion, results in the destruction and the remaining natural vegetation. This speeds up the process of desertification.
Sure. I think after hearing this, we surely understand the hardships and struggles of farmers and the frustrations, especially in the times of drought. However, let's look at the positives, like solutions that you might have come up with over the years.
You know, we tried a variety of methods and they seem to be working, like using our bush species as an important source of fodder during the dry periods, and it actually works. We also give training to farmers to avoid using wrong farming methods. We started practicing rotational grazing, where our animals graze one area and then move to a different area while the previous land recovers. We also cleared off bush from the land by using a bulldozer and chainsaws, and my workers used the wood for cooking. So, yes, these are pretty much the solutions that we came up with, and I'm so glad that it's working.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Let's hear from you, Nicole.
Again, we can relate to more or less the same solutions. We have started practicing mixed cropping and crop rotation, where we have different plants being planted every year on the same land at the same time. With the help of our government, we introduce policies that control the type of farming and how the farming is done in affected areas. Luckily, I am also part of the committee that trains and educates farmers about the specific problem and how to prevent it. Yes, we then basically fertilize our land regularly and return organic waste like cow dung and dead branches and leaves back to the soil. That's what we do, and yes, it is also working over here.
Wow, I'm speechless and sincerely hope that farmers listen very well and will also implement most of these amazing solutions for better results. Any concluding remarks from my guests?
Well, at the end of the day, we should conserve our natural resources and avoid damaging our natural environment. We as farmers, and especially people, should change our lifestyle, and everyone needs to be aware of the serious challenges that we are faced with daily to make a better difference to our environment. The overuse of land can destroy vegetation, so how about we refrain from that? And with those few words, Denver, I would like to thank you for this amazing opportunity to speak on behalf of all the farmers in Namibia. Thank you so much.
Certainly, without vegetation, less water is released through plant transpiration and the air becomes drier. This means fewer clouds form and less rain occurs, and it causes more droughts, and therefore desertification spreads further and barren soil is easily eroded away. So please, let's refrain from destroying our natural environment as already mentioned. Let's reduce, reuse and recycle. Denver, thank you for having me on your well-informed show. I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and for my guests, wise words from wise ladies. I wish only prosperity and wealth for you and for your farms. Thank you for your time. Signing off. So there it is, listeners. Today we learned all deteriorating factors to our environment. Let's summarize. Bush encroachment happens when grazing grass is replaced by invasive bush. Causes: various factors have been found to contribute to the process of bush encroachment. Overgrazing, for example, caused by overstocking and poor fencing of farms. Low rainfall and its variability is the key driver of vegetation growth and composition. Drought, burning of field when rain is expected but does not come. Abandoned areas that were cleared for cultivation that got filled with dense invasive bush. Effects: animals cannot eat thorny invasive bush and can no longer graze in that particular area. Neither people nor animals can pass through that area. A lot of wild animals on our farm that feed on range of different vegetation. If one plant species dominates, animals that feed on other plants will move away, further disrupting the biodiversity of an area. Solutions: use bush species as an important source of fodder during the dry periods. Give training to farmers to avoid using wrong farming methods. Practice rotational grazing where animals graze one area and then move to a different area while the previous land recovers. Use cleared off bush from the land by using a bulldozer and chainsaws. Use the wood for cooking. Desertification: it happens when fertile land becomes a desert. Causes: deforestation, dries out land and remove roots which bind the soil. Sinking of boreholes causes water supplies to dry up. Low rainfall each year causes vegetation to die and the protective vegetation covers disappear. Cultivating the same crop on the same land every year, which is called monoculture, this causes the soil to lose its nutrients and to become infertile and dry. Effects: drying out of the soil, lowering of the water table, which also causes the surface to dry out. Wind erosion as dry, loose soil is blown away by the wind. With no plant roots to bind the soil, increased erosion results in the destruction of the remaining natural vegetation. This speeds up the process of desertification. The solutions: practicing mixed cropping and crop rotation, where different plants are being planted every year on the same land at the same time. Government introduce policies that control the type of farming and how the farming is done in affected areas. Trains and educate farmers about this specific problem and how to prevent it. Fertilize land regularly and return organic waste like cow dung and dead branches and leaves back to the soil. And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Provide possible solutions for desertification. That is your question. I repeat, provide possible solutions for desertification. From myself, Ronald Krotz, program developer Jul van Harte, and the Namcol production crew. Thanks again for listening, and until tomorrow, take care.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hi there, listeners and fellow learners. Welcome once again to our NAMCOL radio studio. My name is Ronald Krotz. Listeners, in lesson 1 today, we are going to talk about why the Earth's plates move and what causes the plates to move. Did you know? At this very moment, continents are moving. Find out more in today's lesson. Why? Enjoy the lesson with us. Good morning, learners, and welcome to this exciting lesson on the causes of plate movement. Who can tell me on which continent Namibia is?
Let me try to respond to that question.
Yes, Nicole.
Namibia is on the African continent.
Very good, Nicole. Namibia is on the African continent.
But sir, how is it possible for continents, which is solid rock, to move? I thought you were talking about plates we eat in.
Okay, very good question, Megan. Remember that the mantle is made up of magma, and magma is very hot and can flow.
But aren't those convection currents?
Wow, good, Megan. It is. The convection current is a current in a liquid that results from convection. Slow convection currents flow in the mantle. These currents are the forces which have an effect on the crustal plates.
What is meant by crustal plates? Is it like in a crust from the bread that we eat?
No, Nicole. But thank you for asking, because if you don't ask, you will not know. Crustal plates are sections of the lithosphere that rest on the mantle. This is an endogenic force because it comes from inside the Earth. Who still remembers the layers of the atmosphere that were done in grade 8? Anyone?
Me, sir. I think I know the answer.
Okay, yes, Megan?
But I can only remember 2. I think one was the troposphere and the other one the stratosphere.
You're absolutely correct. Anyone else with the other layers?
Over here, it is the mesosphere and the thermosphere.
Okay, let's think about a pot of boiling water with a piece of cork on the surface. Convection currents distribute the heat in the water. This causes the cork to be pushed sideways. The time scale for convection, that is now the heat transfer of molecules within floods, such as molten rock, in the pot is seconds, but for crustal plates it is millions of years.
I have a question, sir. Is it true that plates are moving away from each other by about 1 centimeter each year?
Very good question. Plates move roughly between 1 and 5 centimeter per year. Well, to be more specific, I can tell you that results from geological data show that half the spreading rate between the African and South American plates remain relatively constant at 2 centimeters each year over the past 80 million years.
Wow, 80 million years is a very long time.
Okay, so there it is, listeners. Today, we certainly learned a lot about what causes plates to move. Let's quickly summarize. A German scientist, Alfred Wegener, had a theory that millions of years ago, all continents were joined together in one giant land mass. He called this giant continent Pangaea. This supercontinent then slowly started to split up and formed other plates or land masses. During the time when the supercontinent split up, Namibia also broke into two parts. A large deep ocean formed between these land masses. The area where Windhoek is situated was deep beneath the ocean and was thousands of kilometers away from where Rehoboth is situated today. Very slowly, these oceans started to fill up these sediments and the land masses started to move together again. The actual question still is, what causes plates to move? Right. Plates move because of the movement of convection currents in the mantle underneath the lithosphere. Plate movement results in the formation of certain features. The movement of those convection currents in the magma drags and pushes the plates of the crust in different directions across the earth. Good. And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Why are plates moving? From myself, Ronald Krotz, program developer Yul van Harte, and the Namcol production crew, thanks again for listening, and until tomorrow, take care.
This program was brought to you by Namcol with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hi there, listeners and fellow learners. Welcome once again to our Namcol radio studio. My name is Ronald Krotz. Listeners, today we are going to listen to group presentations about Namibia's physical features. I hope you will enjoy the lesson with us. Good morning, learners. This morning, we will listen to two group presentations about Namibia's physical features. So let's welcome the first group and let's listen and take part by asking questions and also giving answers. Here is the first group.
Thank you. Good morning, sir, and my fellow classmates. I am Megan, the group captain of Group 1. So today, my goal is to inform you about our physiographic features such as rivers, oceans, lakes, and mountains. Our four main physiographic regions in Namibia are the Namib Desert or Coastal Plain, the Escarpment, the Central Plateau, and the Kalahari and Etosha basins, as well as some important rivers and mountains in Namibia. The first feature I am going to tackle is the coastal plain.
Okay, before you continue, may I ask a question?
Of course, sir, please do.
Tell me, How far does the coastal plain stretch?
The Namib Desert or the coastal plain stretches from the Kunene River in the north to the Orange River in the south. It varies in width between 50 kilometers and 100 kilometers. The coastal plain refers to the area of lowland that borders the ocean. So the northern desert consists mainly of gravel and rock, and the southern part is sandy with lots of dunes.
Oh, so in other words, are you saying that our coastal plain is the Namib Desert?
That's correct, sir. This is a gently sloping land along the coast. It rises from 0 meters to about 600 meters above sea level.
Aha, good.
The second feature is the escarpment. So the escarpment separates the coastal plain and the central plateau. The escarpment is the steepest in the north. And then to the south, the escarpment includes the Irongo Mountains, the Khomas Hoogland, and the Hans Mountains. Does anyone have any questions?
No, you can continue.
Fantastic. Let's continue. Our third feature is the Central Plateau. So the Central Plateau forms the central part of Namibia and rises to more than 1,000 meters above sea level. This is a flat, high-lying area and is the largest physiographic region in Namibia.
Megan, and how far does this plateau stretch?
Well, it stretches from the north to the south and consists of highlands with large valleys and isolated mountains in the north and flat tablelands with narrow valleys in the south.
Can I just add that the eastern part of Namibia is the rather flat Kalahari Basin or sandveld. Pans are typical landforms in the Kalahari. The Etosha Pan is part of the Kalahari sandveld and is the most striking feature in the northern Namibia.
Oh yes, that's fabulous and thank you. And this is why these regions are so important, and it's important to know where they are situated on a map. So the Kalahari Basin, also known as the Kalahari Depression, is an endorheic basin and a large lowland area covering over 2.5 million square kilometers.
Okay, what does endorheic mean?
It is a limited drainage basin that normally retains water and allows no outflow to other external bodies of water.
Excellent. You've really done thorough research on your presentation.
Yes, thank you, sir. But I had an awesome team to help me, and I cannot take credit for it alone. So thank you to my group for all the hard work. Lastly, the Etosha Basin, also known as the Kuvele, is in central northern Namibia with about 850,000 people. Almost half of the Namibian population lives there. Can you believe it? The basin is part of a transboundary catchment shared by Angola and Namibia. No perennial river exists, and the basin receives all of its water concentrated over the rainy season from November through to April. So with that being said, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you have all learned more about your country's physiographic features.
Wow! Brilliantly done. Very good. You have indeed sensitized us a lot about the physiographic features. Group 2, are you ready?
As ready as can be. Hello everyone, I am Nicole, captain of the mighty Group 2, and I will tell you all about our drainage systems in Namibia. Did you know that lakes Otjikoto and Guinness are not really lakes but sinkholes?
Really? But why and how? Right. Okay.
Wow. Easy. Well, I'm kind of surprised that you don't know. They contain underground water, and if you go there now, you will see the water because of the ceilings of these underground caves have collapsed. There are only two natural lakes in our beautiful country, Lake Liambezi in Caprivi and Omadia Lake Complex in Oshana. Omadia Lake Complex receives water from the Kuvalay drainage systems of Oshana's, a network of interconnected channels that originate in highland areas in Angola.
Well done. But what about our rivers?
Yes, we have in fact quite a few. Most of our rivers in Namibia are non-perennial rivers, meaning they flow only when there is heavy rain. They are often dry, hence there is water under the surface, and trees and shrubs with deep roots can grow in these river valleys. Our non-perennial rivers are the Swakop River, which rises in the Eros Mountains and flows into the Atlantic Ocean at Swakopmund. The Swakop River only flows as far as the Atlantic Ocean once every 5 years because it is a dry valley.
Then we are indeed blessed because this year it did. It was also in the newspaper during our rainy season.
Exactly, you are absolutely correct, Megan. Then we have the Kaisep River. It reaches the Atlantic Ocean a little further south as a very dry river. The famous Fish River rises in the Naucliffe Mountains and also flows southwards until it joins the Orange River on the border with South Africa. This 650 kilometers long river is also non-perennial, and for 160 kilometers it flows in a deep canyon, the Fish River Canyon. The Swakop and Kaisep River flow through the Namib Desert, and this is why they are nearly always dry.
Oh, do we have perennial rivers?
Yes, we do. Perennial rivers flow all year round. The longest sections of perennial rivers in Namibia are the Kunene River along the northern border and the Orange River along the southern river. In Caprivi, Zambezi specifically, there are short sections of the Zambezi and Kavango rivers. The Kavango River flows into Botswana where it enters the Okavango swamps. The Zambezi River flows all the way to the Indian Ocean on the east side of Africa. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening and giving your inputs. It was fun.
Group 1 and Group 2, you did an excellent job. You really nailed your presentations and were very well prepared. Well done, guys. I'm so proud of you. So, all excitement comes to an end. Thank you once again for your dedication and hard work. It was a great success. Until next time. So, there it is, listeners. Today, we have learned all about Namibia's physical features. Let's summarize. Physiographic features such as our rivers, oceans, lakes, and mountains. Our four main physiographic regions in Namibia are the Namib Desert or coastal plain, the escarpment, the Central Plateau, and the Kalahari and Etosha basins. The Namib Desert or the coastal plain stretches from the Kunene River in the north to the Orange River in the south. It varies in width between 50 kilometers and 100 kilometers. The coastal plain refers to the area of lowland that borders the ocean. The northern desert consists mainly of gravel and rock, and the southern part is sandy with dunes. This is gently sloping land along the coast. It rises from 0 meters to about 600 meters above sea level. The escarpment. The escarpment separates the coastal plain and the central plateau. The escarpment is the steepest in the north. To the south, the escarpment includes the Irongo Mountains, the Khomas Hoogland, and the Hans Mountains. The central plateau. The central plateau forms the central part of Namibia and rises to more than 1,000 meters above sea level. This is a flat, high-lying area and is the largest physiographic region in Namibia. It stretches from north to south and consists of highlands with large valleys and isolated mountains in the north, and flat tablelands with narrow valleys in the south. The eastern part of Namibia is the rather flat Kalahari Basin or Sandveld. Pans are typical landforms in the Kalahari. The Etosha Pan is part of the Kalahari Sandveld and is the most striking feature in northern Namibia. The Etosha Basin, also known as the Kuvule, is in central northern Namibia with about 850,000 people. Almost half of the Namibian population lives there. The basin is part of the transboundary catchments shared by Angola and Namibia. No perennial rivers exist, and the basin receives all of its water concentrated over the rainy season from November to April. There are only 2 natural lakes in our beautiful country: Lake Liambezi in Caprivi and Omathia Lake Complex in Oshana. Omathia Lake Complex received water from the Kuvule drainage system of Oshana's, a network of interconnected channels that originate in highlands areas in Angola. Lakes Oshikoto and Guinas are not really lakes but sinkholes. Most of our rivers in Namibia are non-perennial rivers, meaning they flow only when there is heavy rain. They are often dry, hence there is water under the surface, and trees and shrubs with deep roots can grow in these river valleys. Our non-perennial rivers are the Swakop River, which rises in the Eros Mountains and enters the Atlantic Ocean at Swakopmund. The Swakop River only flows as far as the Atlantic Ocean once every 5 years because it's a dry valley. The Kuisab River, it reaches the Atlantic Ocean a little further south, known as a very dry river. The famous Fish River rises in the Nauklof Mountains and also flows southward until it joins the Orange River on the border with South Africa. This 650 kilometer long river is also non-perennial, and for 160 kilometers it flows in a deep canyon, the Fish River Canyon. The Swakop and Kuisab rivers flow through the Namib Desert, and this is why they are nearly always dry. Perennial rivers, they flow all year round. The longest section of perennial rivers in Namibia are the Konene River along the northern border and the Orange River along the southern border. In Caprivi, Zambezi region, there are short sections of the Zambezi and Kavango rivers. The Kavango River flows into Botswana, where it enters the Okavango swamps. The Zambezi River flows all the way to the Indian Ocean on the east side of Africa. And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. The question: define escarpment. I repeat, define escarpment. From myself, Ronald Krotz, program developer Yul van Harte, and the Namcol production crew. Thanks again for listening, and until tomorrow, take care.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hi there, listeners and fellow learners. Welcome once again to our NAMCOL radio studio. My name is Ronald Krotz. Listeners, today we will focus on plate boundaries, always moving away, towards or alongside each other. These movements allow us to distinguish between three types of plate boundaries. There are three basic ways that plates interact with one another. Each of these plate boundaries has the potential to create different geological features.
Boundaries? Do you mean like walls or fences? And that funny geological features?
No, Nicole, it's called geological features.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
Well, everyone, geological features simply refer to any of the physical features on Earth, like valleys, rivers, cliffs, etc. You might also have heard people talking about landscapes and landforms. Nicole, Megan, what's the matter with you? Please come to the front. Okay, that's fine. Now, can the two of you move away from each other?
Okay, we'll move. Come on, Megan.
Yes, please. Man, move, you guys. You're wasting my time.
Okay, great. Well done, everyone. This is our first type of plate boundary that we are going to do today. It is called the divergent boundary or constructive boundary. This is where plates are pulling apart or moving away from each other, like Nicole and Megan just did. At a divergent boundary, two oceanic plates pull apart from each other through a process called seafloor spreading.
Guys, did you hear that our seafloor is spreading? Let's go and look.
You are so funny, Megan.
Okay, seafloor spreading is where the crust spreads apart, making room for new magma to flow up through it. The magma cools, forming new seafloor, and it results in a build-up of basaltic rock around the crack, which is called a mid-ocean ridge.
Wow, that makes so much sense. That is how a new land is constructed, right, sir?
Well, my dad told me that the world's longest mountain chain is underwater. Is that true, sir?
Brilliant! 100% correct. It is 56,000 kilometers long and is called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge.
Shoo, but that is very long.
Megan and Nicole, please come and stand in front, but one on the side and the other one over there. Okay, Now that you are in position, can you guys move towards each other?
Certainly. Come, Megan, hurry up.
Oh my! But I'm on my spot already. Let's move.
Now, learners, our second plate boundary movement is known as a converging boundary or a destructive boundary. This is where plates move towards each other until they collide. Here, the exiting crust is being destroyed. If two continental plates collide, mountain building usually takes place.
Does it mean that the crustal material is destroyed?
That's so interesting.
Yes, Megan, that's very good. That's true. It seems as if you guys are listening attentively to me, and I love it. I can tell you that earthquakes at these boundaries are common. However, because igneous activity is different from ocean-continent collisions, volcanoes are rare. If two oceanic plates collide, the older, denser one is subducted downwards into the mantle and a chain of volcanic islands can form, called a volcanic arch.
Oh, I remember. The other day I watched National Geographic where they talked about the deepest trench in the world. It's called the Marianas or something. It was quite interesting to watch.
Wow, Nicole, that's excellent. It is a very informative program to watch. It is called the Mariana Islands or Mariana Trench. It is deeper than the Earth's tallest mountain. The Mariana Trench is 11,000 meters deep and Mount Everest is 8,850 meters high.
So, what is subducted?
When someone is being abducted, silly.
No, you guys, you surely have a great sense of humor. Subduction is the geological process that takes place at convergent boundaries, where one plate moves under another and is forced to sink into the mantle, where it slowly starts to melt again.
I think that most volcanoes form above subduction zones because as one slab is subducted beneath the other, the interaction of fluids and geothermal heat form new magma. The new magma then rises upwards through the overlying plate to create volcanoes at the surface. Is that right, sir?
Yes, indeed. Very good, Megan. You certainly know a lot. To add to that, the Andes Mountains are home to many volcanoes that were formed at the convergent boundaries. Please remember that also.
Okay, sir, we surely will.
So does this mean we also get a sliding plate boundary?
Very good. Very good, Megan. Let's look at our third and last plate boundary for today. Megan and Nicole, please come and demonstrate the next movement. Okay. Will the two of you slide past each other, please?
Of course. Slide to the left. Slide to the right.
Cha-cha real slow, Nicole.
Okay, our third and last boundary is called a conservative boundary or a shear boundary. Along these boundaries, plates slide past each other in opposite or in the same direction, but one plate is moving faster than the other one.
If the other two are creating and destroying new and existing crust, then maybe this one will create nothing. In other words, crustal material is neither built up nor destroyed. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Excellent, Nicole. You are absolutely right.
Earthquakes! Now I get it. When two plates get stuck, pressure builds up. And when this pressure is finally released, it creates earthquakes. Am I right, sir?
Spot on. Great stuff. Right. An example of a transform fault is the San Andreas Fault in California. There is no volcanic activity along these boundaries, but earthquakes are very common. I would like to commend you on your active participation in today's lesson, children. You have done a great job, and I surely hope that you have learned a lot. Thank you. Now that you have learned about 3 different types of plate boundaries, let's summarize. There are 3 basic ways that plates interact with one another. Each of these plate boundaries has the potential to create different geological features. One, when plates collide with each other, it is called convergent boundary or destructive boundary. The features: earthquakes and folded mountains. 2, when plates separate from each other, it is called divergent boundary or constructive boundary. The features: in continents, rift valley, volcanoes, also in oceans, mid-ocean ridge, and volcanoes. 3, when plates slide alongside each other, it is called conservative boundary or shear boundary. Features: earthquakes. Subduction is when one plate is denser than another. The denser plate goes underneath the less dense plate. Features that occur: earthquakes, volcanoes, ocean trends. And that is the last one. And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Distinguish between divergent, convergent, and shear plate boundaries. That is your question. From myself, Ronald Krotz, program developer Jul van Harte, and the Namcol production crew, thanks again for listening. Until tomorrow, take care.
This program was brought to you by Namcol with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hi there, listeners and fellow learners. Welcome once again to our Namcol radio studio. My name is Ronald Krotz. Listeners, today we will visit the Volcanoes crater, which is situated in the south of Namibia near the town of Keetmanshoop. So please stay tuned to hear all about our adventure. Hello to all tourists present here today. I go by the name of Duat. I will be your tour guide for today. I am pleased to introduce you to our very own famous tourist site known as the Volcanoes crater, which was formed about 800 million years ago. Please feel free to ask a lot of questions and give your valued opinions.
Wow, I have to commend your country. What a beautiful landscape you have. So peaceful. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Megan from the Philippines, visiting and touring through Namibia.
Wow, Megan, I have to agree with you. Such exquisite sceneries here in Namibia. And of course, I am Nicole from Indonesia, making my presence in your awesome country.
You know, I was invited by a friend, and I must say, I'm so amazed by these lovely geological features presented in Namibia, and it's such a pleasure to meet all of you. Duwad, why is it that Namibia has no volcanoes? Where I come from, volcano Pinatubo erupts after every 500 years. But for the past 500 years, there was no volcanic activity at all on the mountain.
Wow, that's extraordinary. Firstly, Namibia is not situated on or near a plate boundary. And secondly, the African plate is regarded as stable. Namibia, however, has a very interesting history of volcanic activities that occurred millions of years ago.
I believe that Namibia is also home to Taurus crater, which lies northwest of the Brandberg, and to the Mesam crater southwest of the Brandberg. Guys, in simple words, what is a volcano? I still remember from my high school years that a volcano is derived from the Roman god of fire, Volcanus. Volcanoes are eruptions or explosions of lava, ash and cinders from a hole or crack in the surface of the earth.
I definitely agree. Volcanoes form where hot molten rocks from deep within the earth forces its way upwards and bursts through the crust. Inside the earth, the hot molten rocks is called magma, and when it erupts onto the surface, it is called lava.
Wait. So let me rephrase. When magma from the mantle reaches the Earth's surface, it is called lava.
Yes.
Okay, and as the lava cools and hardens, it builds up to form a cone-shaped mountain. So besides the lava, a volcano throws out rocks, ash, and lots of steam. Did you guys know that gases such as sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen are released?
Really, Megan? Interesting. I can see the structure of a volcano as we are standing here on the Volcanoes crater. Look at that vent. The vent is the central pipe which is widened at the surface to form a crater. Sometimes lava flows out and sometimes only ash is thrown out or rejected.
Wow, thank you, Nicole, for that wonderful lesson. The most common volcano is a composite volcano. It is made up of layers of ash and cinders and lava. The ejected materials builds up a cone shape, and as the mountain grows, the lava forces its way through cracks on the sides of the volcano. It builds up small cones or conelets on the slopes of the volcano. And sometimes a volcano has one or more side vents, as well as the central vent.
You are absolutely correct. Can you see the central vent here at the Volcanoes crater? The central vent connects the magma chamber to the open vent on top of the volcano and is maintained open by the continuous release of volcanic material. Well done, guys. That concludes our structure of the volcano.
Just think of the impact that a volcano has on human activities. I have seen a lot of positive impacts after volcanoes erupted. Most volcanic regions are farmed and so many people live there. Ash and lava form rich, fertile soil. Diamonds are brought to the surface through volcanic eruptions, and of course, how could I forget? Volcanic material such as pumice lava is used in household products such as toothpaste.
Toothpaste? That's a first. Toothpaste. Now I also know that. Lava flows also create new land, and volcanoes are important tourist attractions, like us visiting this volcanic site. Hot springs are used to generate electricity and power turbines. It also creates many jobs for the unemployed people and generates a huge proportion of money into a country.
Marvelous, guys. That's now absolutely marvelous. Thank you for sharing all these positive impacts that volcanoes have on humans. Volcanoes can also result in widespread destruction. People can be killed or even injured by volcanic bombs and falling ash. Lava flows and ash can burn people, their vegetation, and damage our infrastructure.
Come to think of it, my family also experienced other negative impacts that volcanoes had on them and their country. They were introduced to poisonous gases which also killed a lot of people and their animals. Ash can also cause breathing problems and contaminate water supplies. They said that the steam that poured out of the craters raised the humidity of the air, which caused heavy rain, and it combined with the ash and dust to form mud. The mud rushed down steep slopes and mudslides were created, and obviously buried people, along with farmland and houses.
Ach, that's so sad, Megan. My son-in-law is a volcanologist and he usually informs us about recent volcanic eruptions. But the most astonishing factor is the way they measure the temperature of a volcano. He uses a special electric thermometer to take the temperature of a volcano. Lava is so hot that a glass thermometer would melt.
Oh, that's fabulous, Nicole, and so true. You also get a volcanic explosively index, the VEI, that gives volcanologists a way to measure the relative explosiveness of volcanic eruptions.
This is why I love my job so much, especially when tourists come from other countries. I always learn something new. But I must say today, I've really learned a lot, and I will be ever grateful because knowledge is the key to success. But let me take this opportunity to express my gratitude to you guys that made this day so exciting and adventurous. This visit was amazing, and I am sure that all of us learned a lot from each other. So thank you very much for your time and stay safe.
Thank you very much, everyone. We really enjoyed ourselves today.
Now that you have learned about the structure of a volcano and the positive and negative impact that volcanoes have on humans, let's summarize. The word volcano is derived from the Roman god of fire, Volcanus. Volcanoes are eruptions or explosions of lava, ash, and cinders from a hole or crack in the surface of the earth. So, the positive effects of volcanoes. Ash ejected by the volcano acts as a good fertilizer for soil. Volcanoes attract many tourists who enjoy the dramatic scenery that they produce. Geothermal energy is where heat from within the earth is used to generate electricity. Geothermal energy can be generated in areas where magma lies close to the surface. This is good for increasing our renewable energy use. Many people have jobs. This also generates an income to a country. But sadly, the volcanoes also have negative effects. Here are the negative effects. Loss of human and animal lives. Volcanoes are dangerous and can damage property and infrastructure. Economic activity can suffer as it is hard for businesses to operate after an eruption. Habitats and landscapes are damaged by lava flows. Ash contaminates water supplies and causes breathing problems, and harmful gases can damage the ozone layer. And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. Describe the impact of volcanoes on human activities. I repeat, describe the impact of volcanoes on human activities. From myself, Ronald Krotz, program developer Yul van Harte, and the Namcol production crew, thanks again for listening, and until tomorrow, take care.
This program was brought to you by Namcol with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.